All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We've been digging deep into map geometry, pulling the latest meta insights from top coaches, pro league stats, and champ level players. And honestly, what we found completely flips how you should be approaching the game. If you want to stop losing your matches before the first round even begins, you're absolutely going to want to hear this. So here's how we're breaking this down using a map archetype framework. First, we'll cover how to stop wasting bans, then tackle hard breach heavy maps, utility and control maps, and attacker-sided skirmish maps. After that, we'll compare solo queue versus playing in a squad, and wrap up with a checklist to dynamically adapt to your enemy. The goal here is to teach you the core principles behind actually winning the ban phase.
Okay, Section 1. Stop wasting your bans and start playing the map.
I've just got to ask you directly, why are you still wasting your bans on standard comfort picks just because Jackal keeps sniffing your footsteps? I mean, Jackal is a fine ban in a vacuum, sure, but if you're auto-banning him on a map where he barely has any impact, you are literally just handing the enemy team an advantage, especially when operators like Azami or the new Year 11 Season 1 edition, Solid Snake, are out there fundamentally breaking certain bomb sites.
It really boils down to the difference between a lazy ban, which is totally driven by pure frustration, and an intentional ban that tactically reshapes the layout of the map. A lazy ban is, just clicking an operator because they annoyed you last match, or because they popped up in your final kill cam. But an intentional ban? That means looking at the map geometry, identifying the absolute most critical hatches and essential walls, and surgically removing the operator that controls them. So how do we actually apply this? Let's move to Section 2, hard breach heavy maps and denying the walls.
Think about maps like Clubhouse, Nighthaven Labs, and Oregon, or Theme Park, Canal, and Emerald Plains. For these specific maps, your entire ban phase has got to revolve around keeping critical walls and hatches closed. If you're on defense, these maps absolutely require you to hold power positions to stop the attackers from just peeling the site open like a tin can.
Because of that, Kayed is your absolute priority ban if you're attacking, or your best friend if you're defending. For anyone needing a quick refresher, Kayed is a defender equipped with Electro Claws. These things electrify reinforced walls and, most importantly, hatches. Since you can hide these claws in some incredibly tough-to-reach spots, they are notoriously difficult to counter with standard EMPs like Thatcher's. They can completely lock down a basement site or top-floor walls, making life just miserable for attackers. I was actually blown away by these stats from the Esports World Cup. On Nighthaven Labs, Kayed had a staggering 100% ban rate. He was literally banned in every single round on that map. And that's because his utility completely dictates whether the attackers can even touch the server and jungle walls.
So think of this as your foundational cheat sheet. If you want to dominate Nighthaven or Clubhouse, your attacker bans should focus on Ace, Thermite, or Habana to stop them from opening up those walls, while your defender bans should lock in on Kayed or Bandit. Now, over on Oregon and Theme Park, Thatcher and Maverick are fantastic attacker targets, while Kayed and Mira should be stripped from the defense. Removing these specific pieces, it drastically tilts the odds in your favor. Okay, moving to Section 3, utility and control maps and winning the choke points. On maps that are characterized by tight corridors and really key choke points, Azami becomes the ultimate threat. Azami uses her Kiba barriers to instantly seal up windows, patch holes, and block sightlines. She can literally reshape the map's geometry mid-round. It's kind of like fighting a game-breaking boss. If you're attacking a map with really limited entry points, you absolutely do not want to be fighting against a good Azami. Just look at the recent major. Azami was first phased banned in 10 out of 12 halves on Cafe Dostoevsky. 10 out of 12. Why? Because her Kiba barriers can turn that top-floor piano room into an unbreachable fortress. Attacking Cafe already requires a massive utility dump, and Azami just makes it nearly impossible. For utility-heavy maps like Cafe and Chalet, your attacker bans should focus on aggressive execute operators. Think Ying or Deimos. Flipping over to defense, you have got to strip away Azami, or a shield operator like Clash. On Consulate, for example, which has extremely tight corridors, Clash is practically the only operator who can safely cross the CEO window to deny a plant. Taking her or Montaigne off the board makes executing onto the site way more manageable.
All right, let's see how this builds into our next archetype. Section 4, attacker-sided skirmish maps and controlling the roam.
On maps like Border, Outback, Villa, and Coastline, hard breach is basically optional. The core meta here revolves entirely around roaming, entry fragging, and really aggressive flanking. You don't need to stress quite as much about a Kayed ban here. Instead, you need to stress about who is watching your back. This number right here is absolutely critical, 40%.
Nomad is banned in 40% of Pro League matches, and it makes total sense. Her air jabs completely shut down the roamers that normally dominate maps like Coastline and Vila. She locks down flanks and rotations, which lets her team push without constantly worrying about threats from behind. If you're defending these maps, banning Nomad allows your roamers to actually breathe and do their jobs.
Moving on to Section 5, solo queue versus squads and adjusting your tactics.
Look, your strategy has to shift depending on if you're playing alone or with a full coordinated stack. If you're solo queuing, default comfort bans like Takebi, Jackal, Fenrir, and Mira are actually perfectly fine and highly recommended. They remove operators that heavily punish uncoordinated teams, saving you a ton of headache. But if you're in a squad, you have the comms to deal with roam clear. So in a squad, you absolutely must target the tactical linchpin specific to the map, like Kite on Clubhouse or Azmi on Chalet.
And speaking of squad bans, taking the New Year 11 Season 1 operator Solid Snake off the board is highly recommended right now. His Soliton radar provides a real-time minimap of nearby defenders and their gadgets. That kind of intel advantage is incredibly difficult to counter without very specific, highly coordinated defensive setups. So if you're relying on roamers to win your ranked matches, Snake is a meta-defining ban you simply cannot ignore.
All right, almost done. Section 6, adapt to the enemy, the final checklist. I really love this insight from former semi-pro player Atheno. He points out that being very intentional with your bans and not just reacting to who was in the kill cam last round will definitely improve your odds of winning. Tactical intentionality is literally what separates the players stuck in copper from the ones climbing to champion. You've got to tell your team to stop blindly following default bans without actually considering the context of the specific game you're about to play.
So, just follow this simple dynamic checklist during the ban phase. Step 1, identify the map archetype. Is it hard breach heavy or is it a skirmish map? Step 2, check your starting side. Are you attacking or defending first? And step 3, adapt. If the enemy team has a player who is an absolute demon with a shield operator, flicks your ban to remove Montagne or Blitz. You want to outsmart them before that timer even hits 0.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Will you continue to waste your bans on minor annoyances out of sheer habit and fear? Or are you going to start banning like a true tactician to mathematically guarantee your victory? The Mac gives you the answers. You just have to be willing to look at them. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Now go lock in